On this episode of Team Pilipinas, we continue a roundtable on vaccination for athletes with various sports stakeholders.
I would recommend to take the vaccine kasi you can't even travel abroad if you can't have a vaccine. May nagkakaroon daw ibang vaccine passports abroad.
Which Filipino boxer stands the best chance of winning an Olympic gold medal and who stands in their way?
Gusto ko yung Marshall Gusto ko yung Marshall kasi out of the 11 na nag-qualify na ngayon, 11 na so far na nagpa-qualify, yung tatlo doon tinalo na niya
And we meet the Filipino sports psychologist who helps EJ Obiena stay focused on his adventure to win an Olympic gold medal.
I think that the ones that are able to be flexible, be adaptable, will do well with the pandemic.
Welcome to Team Pilipinas. I'm Nisi Casiano, and this week we begin with an honest-to-goodness analysis of the true chance of our Filipino athletes to capture an Olympic gold medal. First up is boxing, a sport which faces the greatest expectations every 4 years.
Hello, my name is Dennis Principe and this is Team Pilipinas. We've got 4 Olympians in the sport of boxing for the upcoming Tokyo Olympic Games. Dalawa dyan pag-uusapan natin dito po sa ating segment, ang mga kalalakihan. No? Yung Felix Marshall in the middleweight division and Carlo Paalam in the flyweight division, and to discuss their chances, their preparations, at kung ano pang pwede natin pag-usapan, mga kasampo natin ang dalawa sa talaga namang nirespeto pagdating po sa sport ng boxing, Nisi Casiano and Attorney Ed Tolentino. Alright, sige, unahin muna natin. Nabanggit ko nga kanina itong mga kalalakihan in the upcoming Olympics. Of course, between the two, Carlo Paalam and Felix Marshall, ang talagang mataas ang expectations. And in some ways, medyo naging controversial, si Felix Marshall. Siguro, Nisi, ikaw muna. What's your take on if we talk about yung mga pinanggalingan niya of late, turning pro, leaving the Philippines to the US on his own to train. Sabi ng ABAP, no, that's pro, ibang Olympics. So right now at this point, anong basa mo sa itinatakbo ng preparations ni Marshall for the upcoming Olympics?
Well, sir, of course, out of the 4 boxers, is obvious. Marshall is the favorite to land a podium finish in Tokyo. His credentials, sir, speak for itself. A runner-up in the World Championship, topped the qualifiers, and won his professional debut, which added a dose in his confidence heading to Tokyo. And aside from that, Sir Dennis, he trained under Freddie Roach for nearly a year at Wildcard. And at Wildcard naman, sir, he had a wider selection of training partners. And training partners that have the same body frame as him. Sitting in his corner was a multiple-time trainer of the year. It was a no-brainer that Freddie Roach would address that in the gym. Now, they were obvious, siguro roughly 2 months in pa lang sila sa relationship na yan. So it's like I said earlier, na it's intriguing to see the results of yung pag-i-ensayo niya under Freddie Roach. So we hope na masustain niya in Tokyo.
Okay. Now, yung nabanggit niyo, yung first fight ni as a pro, although whether it's a pro or amateur, I think a lot of people will agree na issue parate sa isang atleta, generally speaking, na pagka matagal kang inactive, meaning walang tournament, even if you spend 24/7 inside the gym, iba pa rin daw yung actual competition. Yes. Something that Yumir apparently manifested. I'm talking about the entire team. We have 4 Olympians, Attorney Ed, Nisi. We haven't had a single tournament as of this time. And what if kung yung tournament natin, the entire pandemic, our first tournament would be the Olympics itself. Hindi ba sa inyo concern yan, Attorney Ed?
Para sa akin, that is a major concern. Kasi when you work out in the gym, that is to correct the flaws. Dapat yan kasunod, naturalmente, actual tournament. So you can see how you were able to address your flaws, how you are able to execute. Magkadikit yan eh. Kambal yung dalawang yan eh. You train in the gym and then you take part in a tournament. Nandun yung pressure, nandun yung lahat all in. Kung makikita mo, kung ma-execute mo yung mga flaws mo sa maayos mo, kung na-cure mo talaga yung mga flaws mo sa gym. So kinakailangan talaga yung tournament na yan. In the case of Carlos Paalam, di ba? Nag-advance lang siya because of world ranking. Wala talaga tournament. Although he was willing to take part. Kaso nga, with the pandemic, na-scratch yung ilang mga tournament. So sabi ng organizer, hindi, advance ka na kasi yung ranking mo. So didiretso siya sa Olympics nang hindi talaga dumaan sa grinder. Yumir Marshall dumaan, pero kailan pa yun? Last year pa yun. Ang tagal na. So ibang malaking bagay talaga yung meron kang tournament kasi ang ganda ng pagpasok mo sa Olympics, fine-tune ka. Sabi mo, hindi, marami naman ako ginawa sa gym. Nag-training ako. Gym yun eh. Hindi mo may equate yung totoong pressure na dala ng isang torneo.
Okay, and let's be specific again. Among the four, we know yung quality ni Yumir Marshall, a world silver medalist, world junior boxing champion, world champion din itong si Nesty Petesio, qualifier via a tournament itong si Irish Magno. Para na malabas the least among the four, Carlo Paalam. Baka raw he may live up to his last name, mamaalam agad. Nisi, anong tingin mo rito kay Carlo?
Well, sir, ito proven kasi to kay Carlo Paalam. Though, syempre, on paper, siya yung parang the least na may achievement. Pero kasi, sa akin, Carlo has been a dark horse for the most part of his career. If we would recall, he pulled off an upset by winning the President's Cup in 2017 in Kazakhstan. Take note that at that time, he was the youngest member of the national team. The tournament was dominated by the host nation, which is Kazakhstan. And by all means, Paalam derailed their plans by sweeping the tournament. Plus, he has the 2016 World Youth Championship bronze medal to his name. Aside from that, may Asian Games din siya bronze medal. So it's one of the reasons why experts like us that should never sleep on Carlo Paalam. And also, people forget that Carlo Paalam is the type of boxer who relies on combinations and is a very versatile fighter. So, minsan na-overlook yung mga aspeto na ito in regards to Carlo Paalam.
Okay, and Attorney Ed?
Well, tama naman pag inanalyze mo yung apelyido ni Paalam, tanggalin mo yung PA, may alam. So, never been knocked out as an amateur. Although mabigat yung kanyang makakalaban, yung remember, ongoing pa yung European boxing qualifiers this coming June. Hindi pa dumadating po yung mga heavy hitters ng Europe. Pero merong isa, yung Shakubidin Zoyrov ng Uzbekistan. Ito medyo mabigat kasi dating Olympic gold medalist, already a professional fighter actually, walang talo, 3-0, 2 knockouts, heavy-handed puncher. Ito isa sa mga favorite dito sa division ni Paalam. But I think it will serve Paalam well, the fact that he is determined to make something out of this tournament. Ito na yung chance of a lifetime na kanyang hinihintay. He has the tools. He has faced a number of knowledgeable names in the amateur ranks. So palagay ko, sabi ko nga, tanggalin mo lang yung PA, may alam naman yung si Carlo eh.
Okay. Now, do summarize everything that you know, the opposition, the history and everything. Let's talk about itong dalawa, Carlo Paalam and Yumir Marshall. Nisi, ano bang may share mo sa atin?
Well, dito kay Carlo Paalam, totoo naman yung sinabi ni Attorney Ed na may alam. Given his physical attributes and qualities as a boxer. What bothers me in the situation of Carlo Paalam is he is in a division that is considered a shark tank. From round of 32 to the final 4, it's an uphill battle. Right off the bat, yun nga, nabanggit na rin ni Attorney Ed, yun nga, Shakubin Zoyrov, nandito. From Chinese Taipei, alam ko, from China, nandito rin, si Hu Jiangguan. Aside from that, andun pa rin yung SEA Games rival niya, si Amit Panghal. Nandito rin sa tournament na to. So, may isa ring revelation na hindi natin nakita in the 2019 SEA Games na si San Panmot. Kasama rin siya dito sa, he shined itong sa qualifiers. It's short of saying that he has to squeeze himself through the eye of a needle.
And Attorney Ed, how about you?
Ako between Paalam and Marshall, gusto ko yung Marshall Gusto ko yung Marshall kasi out of the 11 na nag-qualify na ngayon, 11 na so far na nagka-qualify, yung tatlo doon tinalo na niya Yung India, Kazakhstan, Iraq if I'm not mistaken. At matibay ito si Marshall at may lakas talaga ng suntok. Ang mabigat na kalaban niya yung Alexander Kisnyak ng Ukraine if I'm not mistaken. They're calling Kisnyak the Vasil Lomachenko of the amateur middleweight division. Almost 103 wins. And he beat Marshall. Tinalo niya si Marshall. Although kiniklaim ni Marshall, medyo injured yung kamay ko nung nagkaharap kami. So wala ako sa kondisyon. Pero pag nakapasok yung itong si Alexander, ito ang number 1 na makakalaban ni Yumir Marshall. But I like the odds of Marshall because remember, sabi nila, mabigat itong division na to. But he has the physical assets. Marshall is really big. He is really a legit middleweight at marami siyang magandang experience sa division na ito. So for me, if you can just focus on the tournament, kalimutan mo na ako'y pro na ako'y kumikita na. So I think he stands to fare well in this tournament. But again, I'm also rooting for Paalam.
All right, and it's been fun as always talking with you guys. Maraming salamat, Attorney Ed.
Maraming salamat. Always a pleasure talking to you guys. At sa uulitin, sabi nga nila.
And Nisi, maraming salamat sa iyo.
Sir, it's a pleasure to be here.
The sport of boxing, naging topic po natin. And again, nasama po natin. Maraming salamat, Nisi Casiano and Attorney Ed Tolentino. Again, ako po si Dennis Principe and you're watching Team Pilipinas.
The Philippines has been successful in track and field at the Asian Games and the Southeast Asian Games, but as far as the Olympic Games is concerned, getting a medal has remained elusive. Will Tokyo 2021 be the year we get one? On this edition of Team Pilipinas, let us talk to 6-time gold medalist in track and field at the Southeast Asian Games and a semifinalist at the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics, Eric Cray. Hello, Eric. Thank you for joining us and accepting our invitation to join us here on Team Pilipinas.
No problem, man. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Eric, just to start off our questions for this interview. You won your 4th gold for the 400 men's individual hurdles at the 2019 Southeast Asian Games in Manila, which was just about a year and a few months ago. How was that experience?
Oh, man, that was amazing to be able to run, home, in front of the home crowd, all the fans, everybody that's, rooting for you, everybody that's rooting for the team, everybody that's rooting for the Philippines, our fellow countrymen and women. It was a great experience, man, and I believe we did a wonderful job. I think we did a great job hosting the games, and man, it was real wonderful, man. I really enjoyed my time.
Okay, now that a lot of athletes, including yourself, we're now in the midst of this virus, did you have to change the way you trained? What did you do? What were the things that you realized?
Yeah, so everything had to change. For a while, once everything started getting shut down, there was really nothing you could do other than try to prepare mentally. That was a big thing, trying to get mentally prepared for the training that was about to happen, whether or not you were going to be able to get on a track or go to a gym. As for me, I actually started buying weights a little before then. So I already had weights and stuff in my garage where I could be able to lift weights and not have to worry about going to an actual gym. The hardest part was not having the track, and the actual track being shut down for multiple months. trying to train on the street, which is really hard on your shins, on your feet, on your body in general, so just, navigating through all of that, was probably the toughest part. But now that things are picking back up and everything's starting to get open again, it feels great to get back to some type of norm again.
Have you been able to get out on the track again?
Yeah, the track has been open for a while, so I've definitely been on the track, trying to get in some great shape. Because before the pandemic hit, I actually was in the best shape of my life. I had a couple PBs indoors, so I knew I was on the right track before everything got shut down. So once everything got shut down, it was just, trying to figure out how can I stay close to that shape. And then once everything got shut down, I was like, okay, so now I need to rebuild and make sure I come back even stronger. So that's just the navigation that we're doing right now, is just trying to figure out how to get better than what I was before the pandemic hit.
How much of a factor is your support group? Of course, they have also been affected by the pandemic. How important and how have they been supporting you through all of this?
As far as like seeing a chiropractor and massage therapist and things of that nature and getting treatment, that was actually on hold for a while. So now that things are open back up, I've been able to see a chiropractor and massage therapist quite frequently now. So everything, beating up my body and all that, it's been a little better now. Just trying to make sure, we get the funding and I'm able to get it more consistently now, leading up into these serious months of training and actually trying to qualify. So that's the biggest thing right now.
Have you been able to also get support from your family and friends?
Yeah, they support us as much as they can, but family and friends, family has their family. So, just doing what I can and to make everything happen is pretty much all I can do.
The Olympic qualifiers have resumed, and you have been participating in many of them. Can you tell us about this? What tournaments, what track meets have you been joining, and how has the progress been so far?
Yeah, so I only did 2 so far that are actually events where I could qualify. They're pretty early, so it was pretty much just to check where I'm at. These latter months right now, May and July, are pretty much the most serious tournaments that are coming up, where, the deadline to qualify is coming up. So that's the biggest thing right now, is we're preparing for, mid-May to the end of June to make sure that I'm at the best I can be at to go ahead and make that push to qualify. Track is one of those sports where it has to be a build-up. You're not going to always be at your best at the beginning. I'm pretty sure, you can look at a lot of athletes, where they start is not where they end. It's the start is just to see, where you're at in your training. Are you healthy? Did you get through the race healthy? Did you follow the race plan? Did you execute? Do you need to get stronger? Do you need to build a better base? So for track, it's more along the lines of building up to your major competition. And along the way, you have milestones at competitions, but that's not the end all be all. You're never going to be at your best at the first competition. And the goal is always to be at your best at the last competition.
Who are the athletes that you compete in this event, the 400-meter men's hurdles, that you're looking over your shoulder at or looking in front of you at?
Well, it's nobody right now. Because of the pandemic and how training was erupted and abrupted. The main focus is me right now. And that's mainly my main focus every year, is where I feel like I should be at the time of my competition. So right now, coming off a little bit of injuries, trying to, not being able to see chiropractors and get massages, I feel like I'm at where I need to be at, but I know I'm not where I'm going to be, in the latter stages of the competitions that are coming up. So as of right now, there's no names. There's always, good guys across the world, good guys in Asia that I compete against that I know. But as far as right now, the goal is just to qualify. It's not about who I'm beating at this point in time. When I start to think about who I have to beat, that's more when we're in championships. That's like when you get to the games, the actual games. It's like, okay, well, the top guys. Okay, so now it's time to game plan. How can I beat the top guys?
What do you think are your chances about getting an Olympic spot for Tokyo?
My chances, I feel they're pretty high. I feel great. Like I said, I came off pretty much my best season before the pandemic. So my body got the rest during that period, and now it's just building back up. So as of right now, it is a little bit of rust, trying to figure out where my body at and how I'm feeling. But as far as how I feel in general, I feel like I'm going to get to the Olympics, man. That's been my goal since the last Olympics, especially after the semifinals and hitting the last hurdle where I really felt like I had a chance to make the finals. My goal has been the same, get to the Olympics and get to the finals, man. I plan to win my 5th SEA Games. That's what I train for. I don't train to go get second anywhere. And at the time of the games, when it's there, I feel like I'll be hitting and I'll be at my best. So I don't plan to lose. As far as any other goals that I have for the SEA Games, if the schedule, is scheduled properly, where I can actually get into the 100 again, that is a side goal. On top of my main goal is defending my 400 hurdles, but my side goal is to reclaim the title of SEA Games fastest man. That's my secondary goal. So I'm hoping, I can actually get back and accomplish that. Because that was 2015 that I won. The schedule was perfect. 2017, they mixed up the schedule to make me race all in one day. So it set me back. I got second. And then being at home in front of the crowd, being anxious, false started, didn't get to actually run, broke my heart. And then, to be able to come back that same day and win the relay, that picked it up some. But my secondary goal is to come back and win the 100 meters again. So that's definitely something, I'll be preparing for as well.
That was 6-time gold medalist in the Southeast Asian Games and the semifinalist at the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympics, Eric Cray. You're watching Team Pilipinas. I'm Boy Atisa.
The election of Ada Milby as the first female Philippine Rugby Football Union president in December last year was a groundbreaking event in local sports. But for the former Lady Volcano skipper and a one-time member, the only girl known at that period and probably after, of her high school boys football team, it's all simply for the love of sports and the opportunity to contribute. Before Ada moved to the Philippines in 2012, she served nearly in the United States Army for 9 years, including a tour in Iraq. It's easy to assume that military experience largely cultivated her discipline, but she already had loads of it before she enlisted. As a young girl, she trained and competed for years as a figure skater. Then, just for the love of the game and because she felt she was not tall enough for volleyball, she played for a year in her high school boys football team, where, despite some good support, she had to deal with the usual resistance and the complications associated with being the only girl in an all-boys sport.
Even though I wasn't necessarily welcomed by a lot of the boys on the team, I just felt that they didn't have the right to tell me that I couldn't play if I wanted to play. And so it wasn't about, even then it wasn't like, oh, I'm taking up the mantle for women or I'm, leading the charge for anything. It was just like, I want to play sport. This is a sport I'm choosing to play, and no one should be able to tell me I don't have that right. And I guess now I can see that it was a big stepping stone for everything else that I've done in sports since then. But at the time, it was just a young kid who wanted to play football.
When she entered college, rugby beckoned, and she played the sport in her freshman year. Coming to the Philippines rekindled her love for this thrilling, rough and tumble sport. And for 9 years now, Ada Milby has been at the forefront of rugby grassroots development in the country and beams like a little girl, nailing her first figure skating double flip every time she talks about the sport's future.
I really fell in love with basically the culture and recognizing that sport has such a huge opportunity for the Philippine community. And I guess when I saw the opportunity for rugby specifically, I knew it was just a journey that I wanted to be a part of. I knew it was something that I wanted to help spread in the country.
Ada's selection as the country's rugby chief comes amid an especially difficult time characterized by a worldwide pandemic. Sports events are among the hardest hit by COVID-19 restrictions, and despite the need to plan ahead and prepare for upcoming competitions, the safety of the athletes continues to be the current top agenda.
I think the bigger challenge for us at the moment is what competitions are we training for? So Philippines, as you know, isn't the only country that's affected by this. We aren't looking at rugby competitions internationally until the third quarter of this year. In which case, if we have those dates confirmed that there are a certain number of teams that are affixed to be able to attend, then we'll be able to put forward a concrete plan to say we need to put forward X number of days for bubble training, et cetera, in order to make that happen.
The 37-year-old mother of two daughters is also currently serving as a member of the Asia Rugby Executive Committee and in the World Rugby Council, where she is the first female member. Her peers in the Asian Exco have also endorsed her candidacy in the 12-member World Rugby Executive Committee elections this May, and she'll be the first woman in World Rugby's top governing council.
If I'm able to get on the World Rugby Executive Committee, the thing that I would be promoting most is just making sure that there's diversity at the top table. Rugby is the game that we say is a very global game. It's a very diverse game. We have many different formats of the game to be able to cater to our entire audience. And so for me, at the current table, there isn't anybody that represents the development pathways. There isn't anyone yet that is actually a living example of someone who has come from an emerging market in an emerging union in a developing region to be able to say, look, maybe I don't understand as much about some of the high-end commercial things that are happening, but as an outsider looking in, I might be able to bring a fresh perspective based on my experience and background that could help address some of the challenges that we're experiencing in that area. So it's just about having diversity of thought at the top table so we can make better decisions.
For a relatively new sport in the Philippines, rugby has been making good progress. There were only 3 rugby clubs in the country 10 years ago, and the national union now has 20. But there's still a lot of work ahead, and Ada Milby is thrilled for its future.
We've got a bit of work to do, right? Basketball and some of the other sports that are really popular here, they've been around for more than 50 years. And the truth is that rugby's been around for just over 20 for us. So for us, we know that we're poised. We're one of the best ranked team sports in the Philippines internationally across any sport. And so for us, it's about really doing the hard work to make sure that we're putting the efforts into our grassroots programs, making sure it's in the barangays, making sure it's in the schools, so we can in 10, 15 years time, really become competitive with local players.
That's Ada Milby, mother, rugby player and official, and former soldier, high school boys football team member, and figure skater. Philippine rugby needs all that passion, grit and grace, resilience and character. The ball is in good hands.
When we say that we have these values, we're enforcing them in what we do on and off the field. And so for us, we look at how we can support these kids by saying it's not just about sport development, we're looking at sport for development. We're looking at how we can develop these kids as people, not just as athletes. And so again, it comes back to the discussion around how are we developing the whole person, not just people who pick up a ball and run around. My vision of success is when I can go anywhere in the Philippines and I ask a kid if they want to do rugby with me, when they think of the sport and not the drug, then I know that I've been successful.
we continue a roundtable on vaccination for athletes with various sports stakeholders.
I would recommend to take the vaccine kasi you can't even travel abroad if you can't have a vaccine. May nagkakaroon daw ibang vaccine passports abroad.
Over a year after COVID-19 blanketed the world, Philippine sports continues to reel from its crippling effects. As cases soar, the country's top sports bodies may implement a no vaccine, no training policy for national athletes to the 2021 Southeast Asian Games in Hanoi. Team Pilipinas spoke with various sports stakeholders to know their stance on the landmark new policy. Due to the spike of COVID-19 cases in the country, PSC has made a recommendation to implement a no vaccine, no training policy for athletes seeing action at the 2021 Southeast Asian Games. With roughly 6 months to gear up for the multi-sport event in Hanoi, some sports stakeholders weigh in on the matter.
It's a bit complicated kasi given the rules, may mga fears from some athletes na kapag nagpa-vaccine sila, baka ma-compromise yung performance sila. And sometimes you don't know what's really true, di ba? Kumakalat yung ibang news And then, iba naman nagsabi, okay fine, get the vaccine. Pero, yung problema, ang tagal dumating yung vaccine na prefer nila. Someone Moderna, someone Sinovac, someone ganito. So yun. So it gets really complicated.
My personal, hindi yun siguro yung isang solusyon para sabihin natin vaccine no training.
Well, right now, I do agree that with having a vaccine, especially like for the athletes who are training, especially for upcoming competitions this year, it's really just for their safety. But then, it's very unfortunate that there's a no vaccine, no training policy. But then, if that's the case, I would suggest that the athletes would still continue to train, but from a distance. Like I think the online training online would be the best option right now if this rule is already or this policy is already implemented. So I mean, even with these policies, there's always ways to find ways of training. You shouldn't you shouldn't let this policy stop you from continuing your routine, because if you don't, because me as a competitive athlete, even until now, that once you stop your training, your progress will slow down. So I would suggest to really continue your training, even with this policy already being implemented.
We are studying that option, but obviously the key component of that no vaccine, no training, or no competition is the vaccine, and the vaccine has the government has a priority program for a vaccine, and we only go where the government brings us. We are studying the possibility, if the vaccine is there, much safer. Obviously, not taking anyone's right not to have vaccinated or to have somebody vaccinated. We still have to have that, but obviously that's a layer of protection that we encourage our athletes to have.
People have different beliefs about the vaccine. I've seen the vaccine really help with giving someone peace of mind that they're not going to get COVID anymore. So that's actually good. And for those that are a little bit hesitant, it's a matter of just showing them all these other people that they look up to that have taken the vaccine.
Since the PSC is really inclined on the no vaccine, no training policy, I think I would suggest for the athletes to train online with their coaches, or to really practice just to really stay at home, or find a training venue where there's no other people around. So I would really that's what I would really suggest for now. for the athletes, especially for those who are going to the Olympic Games and the SEA Games this year.
Like sa amin, yung ginagawa namin sa mga amateurs, home training. Home training ginagawa nila tapos minsan through yung virtual ganito nagti-training kami para namomonitor kung talagang nagti-training ng gusto. Pero iba pa rin yung normal na nagti-training. Pero yun yung isang way namin para makatraining sila sa mga amateurs yun.
It all depends din talaga on the budget and the power. For me, it's about collaboration between where can the athlete reach its full potential. So if they can answer that in between, I think parang everything will be easier.
When the SEA Games kicks off in November, COVID-19 will still be a global reality, raising concerns about the safety of our athletes.
Sa akin lang, isa na educate nila is yung mga ways, ibang ways para i-prevent. Prevention, mga ganun na educate nila yung mga tao sa iba. Safer na prevention aside from yung vaccine.
Pro-vaccine ako. Kasi everybody's taking it na eh. Even the athletes abroad. So parang if they're taking it and the doctors are recommending to take it, any vaccine for now, parang we should just take it para to lower the risk and just continue training in certain training camps that you can actually go. So my recommendation is train abroad na lang as much as possible. Iba may second thoughts. Noong una ako nagka-second thoughts ako at first. Pero when I'm witnessing a lot of people na athletes and doctors getting vaccinated, so okay naman pala. You wanna see it muna first-hand, di ba, from other people. I would recommend to take the vaccine na. Kasi you can't even travel abroad if you can't have a vaccine. May nagkakaroon daw ibang vaccine passports abroad.
I personally took the vaccine and I'm pregnant. So I shared that with my clients so they would feel a little bit comfortable, and I shared them why I made that decision, that it's based on the science. But at the end of the day, you can just like support them if they're not there yet.
I don't think there's any alternative eh. It's just a matter of delaying it lang eh. Kasi again, the whole world would need to have a vaccine din naman. That's one. Second, so you're delaying the inevitable and you're losing opportunities as an athlete. In case there will be a travel ban to anyone who doesn't have a vaccine.
You know, some of our athletes are actually vaccinated kasi some of them, or a good number of them, are part of our armed forces of the Philippines, and some of them are frontliners.
Despite the very challenging circumstance, the desire to win SEA Games gold remains intact.
Lahat naman same with other countries na makakakumpit natin sa SEA Games, parehas din yung problema. So ang isa lang siguro dito na kailangan nating pag-aralan, paano yung best strategy para makatrain tayo during sa pandemic na to na makapag-prepare tayo ng gusto.
In regards to the replication of the success in the 2021 SEA Games, I believe that it is possible, but the winning formula that should be followed in order to ever achieve that success is having the proper training and also having the proper exposure. It can't just be you can't just be relying on one either way. You have to rely on both in order to become a champion athlete.
So far, okay naman. Because committed pa rin ng mga ibang athletes natin. I just hope that even private sectors would meet halfway in assisting us. Kasi medyo limited na yung fund ng government. And hopefully, kapag tumulong din ang private sectors in providing more training centers for bubble training, things will be better. It will be more optimistic.
The deadly virus has broken communion, collapsed community, and fractured solidarity. But the PSC and POC refuse to cower in the face of adversity, choosing to work hand in hand to safeguard our Filipino athletes. At the end of the day, the goal remains the same: to live, heal, and win as one. Nisi Casiano, sumasaludo sa atletang Pilipino. And we meet the Filipino sports psychologist who helps EJ Obiena stay focused on his adventure to win an Olympic gold medal.
I think that the ones that are able to be flexible, be adaptable, will do well with the pandemic.
The human mind can also be considered a muscle. Our best athletes often train in far-off places under very challenging conditions. Luckily, a very accomplished Filipina clinical psychologist in California is helping Olympians like EJ Obiena free of mental baggage and focused on the goal of winning gold.
You are watching Team Pilipinas. I'm Boyet Sison. In the world of sports, there is the physical aspect of training, but how about the mental and psychological aspect? On this segment of Team Pilipinas, we talk to a California licensed clinical psychologist, a certified sports psychologist for the Association of Applied Sports Psychology, a sports psychology consultant for the Olympic Committee athletes. She also has a master's degree in sports psychology, a doctorate in sports psychology from John F. Kennedy University, and a bachelor's degree in sports science from our very own University of the Philippines. Mga kaibigan, si Dr. Sheryll Casuga. Being a sports psychologist, mainly, or how do you mainly work with them?
I will expand more, but like basically it all comes down to three things. So first, I help athletes be aware of the mental aspect of their performance, because if they don't know the different ways that their mind is affecting their performance, then they can't change it. And I can expand on that later. But once they're aware of it, then I help them control, and then I help them optimize it. So I'll give an example. For instance, confidence. It's not enough that athletes know that they're confident or not confident, because that's not really going to help them get there to be as confident and as mentally tough that's needed for their performance. So I usually have to get them to be aware of what's going through your mind when you're confident. What are those things that affect your confidence when you're not as confident? What are those things that are going through your head? And that way we'd be able to address those. And sometimes athletes are not able to talk about it freely. Syempre, sometimes nahihiya sila. So what I usually do to help them is I create ways for them to be able to talk about this inner states that are not necessarily part of the ideal state when they're at their best, performing at their best. So sometimes I would use things like, the monkey, or some of the aspects that are telling you that this kind of messing with you, distracting you in your performance. And then the professors, the voice in your head that's telling you that, you're not good enough, you're doubting yourself. And so they're able to talk about it outside of themselves. So they would say that, what's going on with the monkey when you're not performing at your best, what's happening with the professor, and what do we need to do to quiet those? Do we need to put the monkey in a box, or do we need to be able to still perform even though those aspects of the monkey and the professor is messing with your performance?
Are there also athletes that are on the surface confident, pero actually sa likod ang daming self-doubt?
Sometimes we have athletes that are very shy in personal life, and they're very anxious before competition, but then once they step into competition, they're able to put everything aside and perform. And that's and that's different for different athletes. Like how to turn that on, how to turn your best self on is part of the ways that I work with athletes.
Can you give us an idea of how athletes were pre-pandemic and now that we are in a pandemic?
It depends on the personality of the athlete. Some athletes are used to a lot of stressful situations because maybe in their life it has been rough. So the pandemic is just another obstacle or thing that is, they need to cope with. And that's actually the strength of some of the Filipino athletes that I've worked with, because they're used to adversity. Even the ones that are here in California, the boxers and the fighters that I work with, they come from simple beginnings and they're used to adversity. So the pandemic is just another adversity for them. But for some, it's been harder to kind of like be outside of their comfort zone in terms of training. They have to improvise a lot. And I think that the ones that are able to be flexible, be adaptable, will do well with the pandemic, because everyone's going through this, but the ones that are more creative and more adaptable will definitely get the most out of their training or succeed in all their endeavors.
Are there any commonalities and as well differences for such?
So I think that most athletes, the commonality is everyone has a mental side to their sports, whether it's very mental or just a little bit like, on the mental side and mostly physical. There is an aspect of it that is in the realm of sports psychology. So it can always be improved. It can always be enhanced. And in terms of differences, there are some athletes and sports that require you to have, like for instance, boxing. It requires a lot of mental preparation and mental practice. More like when they're like prior to getting on the ring. And once they're performing, being able to execute that, has a lot to do with the mental preparation that they've put into their sports. But like other sports, it's more like being able to adapt to the different things that are going on within the sporting environment.
What is the most difficult part of your job?
The easiest part of it is most athletes are already motivated. So you work with amazing athletes that are motivated and you have a common goal to help them perform at their best. And you can really do a lot because they're willing to learn, and they're willing to do what it takes to succeed. On the downside, sports psychology is a relatively new field. So there's a lot of doubt. A lot of times people say that, I don't need sports psychology. I'm already confident. And there's actually more room. The better you are as an athlete, the more sports psychology can make you better.
It needs a lot of people to help an individual, an athlete. Paano yun, Doc? Pati yung mga nakapaligid sa kanya, yung mga sa nabanggit mo, mga coaches, mga miyembro ng pamilya, pati sila kinakausap mo?
No, I only work with the athlete, but like sometimes, some coaches are not bought into sports psychology. So I would say one thing and the coach will say another thing. So it's better when everyone is on the same page. With Filipinos, sometimes what they like about working with me is I'm familiar with the culture. I'm familiar with some of the politics that they have to deal with and whatnot. So they're able to share those with me. And for when I'm working with athletes that are from different cultures or different backgrounds, I try to get to know where they're coming from. What are those values that like impact their performance? And from there, I'm able to connect with them and be able to help them. I've been lucky to have a good working relationship with EJ. We started working around early 2019. I think it was around February or March. And I'm not revealing anything that people don't know. Anyone who's seen him perform knows that he's such a fierce competitor, and that's actually what we're continue to work on is to make sure that once he gets on the largest competition, which is the Olympics, that he'll be able to just show what he's got and come up the victor. So it's all about just like, maximizing his training right now, maximizing all the time that he has till the Olympics.
That was sports psychologist Dr. Sheryll Casuga. You're watching Team Pilipinas. I'm Boy at Season.
And that's this week's episode of Team Pilipinas. I'm Nisi Casiano. Join us every Saturday at 4 p.m. only here on PTV. And don't forget, we are all on the same team. We are all Team Pilipinas. See you next week.